Yo guys, what is up? It's your boy ProGamesPlayer, and welcome back to another video. And before we start the video, I want to thank you guys for 500 subscribers. We've managed to reach this number, and that's all thanks to you guys. Make sure to keep watching the channel because more fun stuff is on the way. And today's video is going to be about the 5 most underrated cars in Crash of Cars. And because we're doing 5 cars, that means we're going to be doing 1 car from every category. That's 1 common, 1 rare, 1 epic, 1 legendary, and 1 fusion car. I'm going to compile what I think are the most underrated cars from that category. Now this isn't really an easy list to make because when we're talking about commons and rares, it is really tough to pick out a single car because a lot of them are actually very, very great, and yet not a lot of people use them. But I'm hoping that after this video, you're going to give these cars a chance because they deserve to be given a chance. We're going to start off with the common cars because we're going to start that. And first of all, we're going to go with a car which I don't think is that underrated, but I still think it's a car that you should try, and that is the Gravity. Okay, I'm going to be a bit blunt on this one. The Gravity is simply just underrated, and there are many reasons why. The first reason is this is one of the faster common cars that you can find, and not only that, it is also one of the more agile common cars, and it's just a very awesome car. Like, it's so underrated, people barely use it, and I don't understand why. Like, I rarely see anyone use this car, and it's such a great one. Like, it has great stats, it has a lot of great things going for it, but no one really uses it. Now, obviously could have included something like the minecart or the totem here, but I think people know about those cars, and remember, we're going for the most underrated cars, and this has to be one. We're now going with the second most underrated car in the game, and that is the sprint car. Now we're going with a rare, and the sprint car is severely underrated. It is one of the faster cars in the game. I think it's probably, like, I would say the fastest non-speed car in the game. Now, obviously, I could be wrong again, but I think I'm a bit confident on this one. I think this is the fastest non-speed car in the game. Now, obviously, it does have a trade-off. It doesn't turn as well, but that's something that you can, figure out. It's, like, not super bad, but yeah, turning is a bit slow on this one, and yeah, I can see why you wouldn't use this that often. But this is a very great car. It's so fast, it can catch up to opponents, and it is a heavier car. It doesn't get pushed around as easily, so that's also something to consider. Whereas most lightweight cars get pushed around, or especially faster ones, this car doesn't seem to get pushed around that easily, so keep that in mind. But I will say, this, just like the Gravity, doesn't have the most health, but it is one of the faster cars, and obviously an underrated one, so I'm including it in this list, the sprint car. The third most underrated car in Crash of Cars, and now an epic, is going to be the Hovercraft. I don't seem to see this car that often in games, and obviously, yes, I could have chosen way better cars, at least from the epic section, but I have seen a lot of those cars in that list a lot, and I'm trying to go for cars and I barely see, and there is a reason that this Hovercraft should be on this list. It pretty much drives on water, like, it's that simple, and it's something which a lot of people just don't utilize. You can bait opponents, you can attack them from water, you can obviously escape very tight situations by going through bodies of water, and that's just something that this car allows you to do. Every other car will just fall into water except for the speedboat and the submarine and Dutchman. Those will teleport, but most other cars will probably just jump into water and sink and whatnot. But this car, yeah, you can do some pretty cool stuff with this, and that is why I think that this car deserves to be on the list. An underrated epic car, the Hovercraft. The fourth underrated car in this list is going to be the plane, and the same thing goes for the epic cars. The only reason I'm really including this is because I could have included a lot of other legendaries, but I think a lot of them are used, and I'm trying to put the attention on cars that don't really get that much gameplay, at least according to me, and the plane does seem to be one car, and the reason why I'm including the plane here is because the plane can pretty much fly, avoid anything that's happening underground, and because it is flying, you can actually escape a lot of tight situations. Not to mention, you can do air attacks, like use cannons, and you can actually shoot cannons and still hit enemies on the ground. You can also launch landmines perhaps and still do damage. It's just a very great car, and not a lot of people use it, and obviously I could have gone with something else, but many of the other cars that I see are pretty much, legendaries I could have considered here. Obviously, Submarine, it has a good ability, but I still think it's a bit more used than most other cars. And then there's obviously the Trailblaze, I've seen that a lot of times. But the plane, I don't seem to see that often, and it's a car that I think you should use a lot more often. And the last car for this list, the fifth car, now a fusion car that I have chosen, has to be the Nuclear. And this one was a tight choice between the Nuclear and a helicopter. And the thing about the helicopter is not only have I seen it in a few games, but also it is not as great as you would imagine it. Like, yes, it can obviously fly over water, and yes, it can obviously climb like certain heights, kind of like the monster truck, but I've still noticed that it's not the most reliable car for both those things. And not to mention the fact that it's a very unstable car, like it drifts a lot, it is just not the best choice. The Nuclear, on the other hand, I see it really rare, and it's just such an awesome car. You have the homing missile replaced for a missile strike, which does area damage, and that is just way better. Obviously, it doesn't do as much damage, but I just think Nuclear is one of the most nuclear cars in this game, if you can call it that. And obviously, this is just a car that I have to include in this list. It also just looks really awesome, and per request from one of my viewers, I will make a tactics video on this car soon. But yes, this is a very underrated car, and I recommend that you, if you have this car, use it more often. And that's it for today's video, guys. What do you think about 5 of these cars? What do you think should be the 5 most underrated cars in Crash of Cars? Write in the comment section below. And that's it for today, guys. Make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. Don't forget to watch my other videos. And I'll see you later. Peace.